So let's talk about setting up an Android app. But one of the first things you want to do is, although you actually don't need it, is go ahead and get the Android SDK from the URL here. What it really gives you is really that last one, DDMS, the Dalvik Debug Monitor Simulation. And that's actually going to be great for screenshots. And, you know, if you really get into it, there's some deeper stuff. And if you don't have a device, that's how you're actually going to get the emulator. We'll get to that in a little bit. And then, obviously, you're going to need to download the AIR SDK. Now, right now, you're going to have to manually update your version of Flash Professional CS5.5 to the latest version of SDK. There is a really nice tutorial at swiftgeek.com on how to go in and properly update your installation of AIR inside Flash. You know, AIR 3.2 is in beta at the moment. Nothing for mobile, it's only desktop. So you can imagine that there's going to be a release probably of AIR 3.2 before we see a new version of Flash Professional. So I would definitely go learn how to manually overlay the AIR SDK inside your Flash Professional and bookmark it, print it, file it away, because you'll be doing it often. iOS, a little different, a little more expensive. So you can get the Android SDK for free. It does cost $25 to get into the marketplace. I think that is for a lifetime, not for a year. For iOS, pretty much you're going to need to spend $99 a year. You're going to have to become an iOS developer, agree to their terms of service, download Xcode and a whole bunch of other things in order to create and install your apps on device. There's no way around that. And again, same thing about downloading the AIR 3.1 SDK and overlaying it there. So like I said, you're going to need to update your AIR SDK. Here's the long URL. He actually wrote this when the release candidate was out. So, you know, just ignore release candidate and go with final. But it's a really nice, straightforward tutorial of what files you need to update, what XML files you need to touch. You know, if you happen to be in a pre-release program that may or may not exist, you might be doing this a lot. So I mentioned emulators and development environments. And this is a big deal because with most mobile development, it is a process of test, on device, twiddle, test, fiddle, back and forth, back and forth. And it's a real big issue. I should say emulator here. So on the left, you kind of see the default Android emulator, and you know, on the right, some Android phone. I'm not getting in trouble. The Android emulator is painful. There's no other way to say it. It's slow. It's slow. I'm not slow. I mean, go out for a cup of coffee, come back. You know, it may have started up and your app may be there. You know, if you don't have a device, it's your only solution. You know, pick up another job and buy a phone. Getting it on even just the simplest device on Android is so easy, and I actually will show that a little later in the slide deck, that I haven't fired up the emulator in a year and a half. So having a device on the Android side is wonderful. Publishing over there is, you know, it takes all of 15 seconds. iOS is different. iOS has this whole complicated provisionings and certificates that have to be loaded on the phone and compilation. They actually have not an emulator, but a simulator. So it's actually running more at the speed of your computer rather than trying to emulate what the device is. So actually running the iOS simulator isn't too painful. I would say I would probably spend, with my iOS development, probably about 75% of my time is just inside there. I'm comfortable enough on what I'm doing over there. But again, having to get back on device, you know, always has to happen. I've actually found, unless your application requires it, an iPod Touch works as a wonderful iOS development device. I mean, it doesn't have everything that a true iPhone has, but if your app isn't using that feature, it's a whole lot cheaper. It doesn't come with a contract.